Hey, what's up? Hello. Welcome to the 15k Q&A. This is a video wherein I'm going to be attempting to come off as more personable than I actually am by completely ignoring scripts and instead just answering questions that are posed in response to my latest community tab post. This is not only a celebration of 15,000, but also 6 months on the platform and the very cool community we've built in that time. I think that suffices for an intro, so let's just answer questions. Bastion Mark 8698 asks, have you played any of the Telltale games? And if so, which games were your favourite from their catalogue? That's a good question. The answer is I have played pretty much all of them. Apart from the Minecraft one and the Borderlands one. I don't think I've done those two. So, yeah, my favourite is the Wolf Among Us. It got me into the Fables comics. I thought Bigby is a brilliant protagonist. He's kind of in the same vein of a Commander Shepard or a Geralt of Rivia, where no matter how you play him, it feels immersive and kind of not like you're really breaking character too much, which is a hard line to balance in these narrative choice games. I also just really like the setting. It's very World of Darkness-esque, which I also really like. A close runner-up would be The Walking Dead, especially seasons 1 and 2, because I feel like Kenny is such a compelling secondary character in how variable he can be. I had a video planned on him, actually, a while ago. I also think Lee and Clementine are really fun characters, and I love Kirkman's setting there. My least favourite one that I've played is probably the Batman one. It was the last one I played, and it was just really bad on a technical level. Like, there were a lot of issues with audio, texture pop-in, frame rates, and then the dialogue was kind of all over the place, and you never really had any idea what you were signing up for when you pressed any of the buttons because of how random the dialogue prompts were. I also didn't really like the Game of Thrones one. So yeah, there's your answer. Katie Madsen 5325 asks, what movie, TV show, or game would you have loved to be involved for the writing of? I don't really envy professional writers at all. I think they have a far harder job than I have here because they don't have the benefits of hindsight, and they also have, shareholders and executives who are putting loads of pressure on them all the time. That said, there really wasn't any excuse for the end of Game of Thrones. I think anyone probably could have salvaged that by just taking a little bit more time with it and showing a little bit more respect to George R. R. Martin. I'm assuming that's what you're meaning when you're saying would have loved to be involved in like something that's already came out. For future projects, obviously, the main thing on this channel is Supermassive Games. They should let me write a Dark Pictures anthology game, and when it invariably comes out and it's terrible, I can lose my entire platform because I will prove to the world that I don't know what I'm talking about at all. I think that would be really fun. Will Doyle, send me an email. Please, Supermassive Games, read my 500-page document where I try and convince you to let me make a Battle Royale death game where of your 5 mandated Dark Pictures characters, you ultimately can only keep one alive at the end, unless you get 15 Ratat tokens, and then you can win. I do think they should make a game where all of the characters are kind of against each other, though, to some degree, because so many of the games are just on a you're trying to keep everyone alive type thing. It would be cool if you had to just kind of pick which one you wanted to succeed as and kind of fail with all the others just to see your favorite character win. That would be fun. And it would really up the stakes in multiplayer as well when you're kind of competing with the other person towards the end of a game. So even though it's overdone, maybe they should make a Battle Royale Dark Pictures game. Sophie Michael 8045 asks, where do you start your research and how do you choose what to include and how do you organize your research? Totally not asking because I'm bad at research. I'm pretty bad at it as well. That's why my videos take so long. So, assuming you're talking about media analysis and not my far older history videos, the workflow looks something like, obviously engaging with the media, properly engaging with it, taking notes, trying to understand everything in it um, from my own perspective. From there, I will find interviews with the creator where they talk about their views on the work, what inspired it, what they were going for. If they have listed inspirations, I will go back and interact with those inspirations. So for the House of Ashes video, Will Doyle says that it was in part inspired by At the Mountains of Madness, so I went back and read that. And from there, I will collate a list of key topics and things that I think are relevant to driving the plot or relevant to what the point of the game is, and I will research those topics. In order to get a good understanding of any of these topics, for instance, the Iraq War for the House of Ashes video, you can get a basic overview by watching a documentary or reading a Wikipedia or Britannica article. This should by no means be your primary source, but it's a good starting point to familiarize yourself with the topic. And from there, you can go on to search these topics in greater detail in something like JSTOR or Google Scholar and get a series of proper published academic articles and books that relate to your given topic. And usually you'll find people that you just kind of agree with across the board who seem to have pretty good takes if you're sticking within a certain era. So Tom Holland, not the actor, the writer, is one of my favorite authors when it comes to Rome. He has some of my favorite takes on it. So most of my opinions on Rome are kind of just stolen from him. From there, I will get a big long list of various different interpretations of a given topic, time period, or person, and put them into a giant Google Doc full of quotes, which is not a good way to organize your research, but that's what I do. And from there, in terms of choosing what to include, I'll go back to my notes and the point I'm trying to make. Shape it, change it. Obviously, if I'm completely wrong, I have to change my main thesis. But once I've settled on that, I will just pick things that are relevant and properly back up what I'm saying, and everything else that's kind of tertiary information can go. So I hope that answers your question. So Dota asks, what are some of your other favorite indie games? They also have a bonus question that I'll get to in a second. But to answer the other favorite indie games thing, I like grand strategy games and colony sims. So I really like RimWorld and Crusader Kings 3. Those are probably in my most played games. I really like the modding scene for CK3. The people who made the Princes of Darkness mod and the Game of Thrones mod should be given budgets and they should make full games because they're incredibly talented. In terms of horror indie games, I'm really into No I'm Not a Human at the minute. I had the very start of an idea for a video on it where I was going to talk about how all of the humans, all of the people who are provably not visitors, are kind of worse than the visitors in many ways. How humanity itself is very dodgy. And I also had some thoughts about how the tall man is looking specifically for you and how the whole thing could be some kind of moral test akin to purgatory. So I had a lot of thoughts on it and a lot of interpretations, but then I realized I'm 3 videos behind what I've promised for the year anyway, so that will just have to be a given up on idea unless someone else wants to make it. You're welcome to that idea. I I don't have the time for it. To answer the bonus question, favorite Fear and Hunger characters, I'd like to define what makes a character good for me. There's two main things. For me, a character is good when they are internally consistent, as in they feel fleshed out, realized, they are a character who makes sense within their own internal logic. And that doesn't mean a character has to be completely static. A character's core trait can be that they're messy and all over the place and don't know what they want. As long as they're consistent with that and any change we see to them makes sense, I'm happy. And another thing I like is when the character is representative of the themes of the project, because you need to think about them as an entity within a story and what is the point of the story you're trying to tell. So a character really should be both of those things to be a really compelling character. But in Fear and Hunger, there's the added sense that characters, some of them are better as playable characters, and some of them are better as NPCs and followers. A Bella, for instance, is such an iconic first party member that whenever I'm playing as her, I kind of miss having her as a second man on the team, if that makes sense. Um, all of that said, my favorites are Kahara because he, is tied in to the whole fear and hunger thing, and Dan because he's my profile picture. However, I also have a lot to say about Marco and Tanaka, so strap in for a brief unscripted video essay on those two characters. I'm bringing up Marco and Tanaka here to prove my point almost because the two things I've just said are true of them. Marco and Tanaka are both incredibly consistent characters in different ways. Tanaka is consistent in that he starts off very scatterbrained, and then we see him undergo an arc wherein, if he's kept alive, he becomes a much more focused person who's willing to slow down, pick up hobbies, help other people. He changes in a believable way. Whereas Marco is an incredibly static character. He stays basically the same for the entire game, but it's his static nature that allows Tanaka to undergo this change. I also think my second point is true, where a game or a book or whatever, the characters should be reflective of the theme of it. And whilst Marco and Tanaka aren't really tied in to the logic or sulfur plots in the same way that, say, Olivia or Dawn is, they do have something to say about the game. Because Termina is an incredibly cynical look at humanity. It's humans being reduced to these very animalistic states and turning on each other in these, bloody, vengeful acts. But Marco and Tanaka do small acts of kindness for people around them, and they become friends in spite of the incredibly harsh situation they're in. So anything that happens with them can be seen as a counterpoint to the game. It's showing hope in a very war-torn, dangerous, and sad world. And I think the game does pull attention to this. Marco and Tanaka are the first people you see in the carriage with you. Tanaka is one of the first people you'll interact with. So the two of them being this constant presence of these good guys is interesting. And the fact it's so hard to keep them alive is also interesting because it shows how the world punishes people who have good intentions. So yeah, there's brief thoughts on those two. I've been thinking about them a bit recently. Phil S5230 asks favorite food. Does boba tea count as a food? It's got like tapioca in it. I'm really into that at the minute. In the most sort of obnoxious hipster way, I'm into that. Arhadar6873 says, "What's the reasoning behind your name?" There isn't one. I just kind of mashed keys, and then I saw, oh, it kind of looks like an animal or that one Pokemon, so I'll keep it. And then after making the account, I found out it means like failure in Romanian, and I thought that was really funny. So I'm just gonna keep it. Because this channel wasn't really made with any kind of specific intention. I made it to make a video that was making fun of drama channels to send to like two of my friends, and then I really enjoyed making that video, so I took it down and started making actual content. Prafenk asks, "How do you find motivation to write?" Um, well, the issue is that I always have motivation to write. I just very rarely have motivation to write the thing I'm supposed to be writing. I'm the kind of person who has about 500 ongoing projects all the time. I have a frankly ludicrous number of things that I'm writing or working on, and very few of them are actually relevant to what I do over here. So I suppose finding motivation to stay focused on a project, if I'm really not in the mood to do it, I will force myself to do it for 5 minutes. And usually by the end of those 5 minutes, I'll have some ideas I want to expand upon and will keep working. If that doesn't work, I will try and clear my head, go for a walk, go to a cafe, just change my setting and try and come up with new thoughts in a new setting. And sometimes I just can't. And it's just a complete write-off, and to that day just isn't going to be anything. And I have to accept that I will have days like that. To answer the bonus question on what my MBTI personality is, I just did the 16 personalities test just for you, and I got mediator, which is INFP. Is that good? You let me know. Pyla9472 has a few questions. First one, are there any franchises or series you wish had continued? A Song of Ice and Fire. On the other side of the coin, which franchise/series would be better off if the devs stopped releasing more content? Five Nights at Freddy's. 2. Do you have any controversial horror game takes? I just gave you one. For example, disliking a generally beloved game/character. I think Silent Hill Downpour is actually okay, but I haven't played it in like a decade, so it's nostalgia making me think it's good, and not the game being good that makes me think it's good. I have quite a few controversial horror game takes. I still get comments on stuff I said months ago on several videos. The Silent Hill video is probably the most controversial, and some of the stuff in that video I have attempted to actually correct, but no one reads that pinned comment, and everyone just comments anyway. So I guess the initial take I gave is controversial, and I apologize for that. Another thing I get a lot of comments on is in the Quarry video, where I say it's kind of bad that the studio Supermassive didn't give Silas, the main villain, any personality. They made him a complete blank slate. He has 0 lines of dialogue. He's not a character, but players are expected to just assume everything about him based on his ethnicity, with him being Romani. And a lot of people were really, really annoyed about that. They thought I was trying to cancel the Quarry. They thought I was trying to, you know, turn their kids into communists or whatever. But in my eyes, that's not a very controversial take. Really, characters should be well written, I think. What's the video you're proudest of? The parasocial one. It's got the best production value and it's very well researched compared to most of my slop. Question 4, I already answered. It's how does your research process work? And question 5 is have you played mouthwashing? I have not, but I do have recommendations on YouTube. I know what mouthwashing is. At some point, I would like to play it. And then after that, I will no doubt want to make a video on it, but it will be both too late and I will not have enough time. So, yeah. Trazy Star asks, what would you do if when you okay, so he said yes would go? I'd tell him God bless him. Lurking Creature asks, what are some of your favourite tropes in any sort of media? And feel free to share some of your red flags if you'd like to. This is a really good question and something I think about often. I'm actually curious to see other people's thoughts on this, other people's favourite tropes, because I love talking about tropes. One of my favourites is when the, bumbling old man is secretly the ancient master, your Master Roshis and your Yodas and that sort of thing. I love big melodramatic betrayal arcs, same way I love big melodramatic redemption arcs. Yeah, I just love that kind of thing when two people who used to be mates are having a big punch up, or two people who used to be enemies are now mates. Pretty standard vanilla stuff. Tropes I don't like, just the ones no one likes. I've kind of kicked off about the "it was all a dream" trope before. No one really likes fridging. That trope is, been dragged through the mud quite a lot. I think most people accept that it's pretty bad. So yeah. Small Kidney Joe 4046 asks, have you played/heard of Pathologic? Yeah, I watch Mandalore Gaming and H Bomber Guy. I've heard of Pathologic. I was really into it, 2 years ago, and by really into it, I mean really into video essays about it. Because everything about the game is right up my street. It's got the weird setting, the sort of strange theatrical elements, the odd world design and soundtrack, and the complex moral choices. I'm very much on board with all of that. But then I finally purchased it and tried to play it, and the walk speed was so slow. I had a similar reaction when I first played Morrowind, actually, although I have since come to appreciate that game. So maybe I should pick it up again, and I'll like it more now that I'm a bit more used to games in that style. They also ask, if you were an animal, what would you be? I'd be like a really fetid, disgusting rat, I think. Similar to my username. A failure of a rat, if you will. Susanna Valdez leaves a really nice comment about how I've inspired them to make their own content, which is really nice to hear and very confidence instilling. But also, I hope you remember that when you invariably do better than me. Invite me on your podcast. I need the exposure. The questions are: what does your workflow look like? How long does it usually take to get a video out from inception to release? It varies quite a lot. Back in the day, a few months ago, I didn't have the presence online that I have now. Not that I have loads now, but back then I was just kind of making stuff on my days off and kind of flinging it out there rather than working on long, sort of protracted projects. So I made the Until Dawn video over the course of a weekend with no script. It was just kind of bullet points. The same is true of the first Junji Ito video. And then the Quarry video is where I really started writing scripts and putting together my thoughts. That took about a week. And now we've got to the point where the Little Hope video and the House of Ashes video take like a month, because I really don't want to get anything wrong and want to put loads of effort into making sure that they are as accurate as they can be. So how long it takes to get a video out is an ever increasing number. I'm sure I'll eventually reach the point where I'm one of those people who drops like one video a year. Question number 2. What hurdles have you experienced as a video essayist on YouTube? Defining the scope of my channel is what I'm currently struggling with, because I want to talk about everything. I want to just kind of upload whatever takes my fancy that week. I've considered like doing a live stream for a day, or uploading a video of me reading my own writing, or completely leaving the horror space. And obviously I came into the horror space after randomly coming over to it from making history videos. So right now I have to kind of restrain myself and focus in on relevant and related topics, so the people who are here right now are getting what they actually want to see and not what I want to make. But of course, if I don't want to make something, it's kind of redundant. So I have to find this middle ground where it's something that interests me, but also interests the people who are here. So yeah, that's my current struggle. Question number 3: what software do you use for your videos? It's all like stock. I have a budget of 0, so OBS for game capture, and like if you're doing it on a console, like a capture card, which again you can pick up really cheap. For the thumbnails, I use GIMP, which is like Photoshop but free. And then I edit it literally just in the stock editing software, which on Windows is Clipchamp, but on Apple is like iMovie or something. Again, I'm trying to ramp up the budget on this channel, so at some point I will have to get the flipping After Effects subscription or whatever. The same way I had to buy an actual microphone. If you do want to take things seriously, you do need to look into improving stuff. But I'm just not at that point yet, so I'm maybe not the person to ask. Offenga asks, a lot of games change genre for a section or two. Are there any examples that stick out to you? Bloodborne, in the shift from gothic horror to cosmic horror, it's pretty iconic. That's probably the main one that I think of when I think of like big shifts in tone or vibe. The other one would be any Yakuza minigame, especially the ones in Zero and the Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. I really like the Infinite Wealth minigame where you have to like go on e-dates with people and like spam out responses. And it's basically just you sending please, 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 please to random girls you meet online. I thought it was hilarious. That's a fun genre change. And finally, Alice Vok asks, what did you think of the Until Dawn remake? I have not played the Until Dawn remake. I have been too busy playing other games for other videos. So, yeah. Spoilers, though. So, stop the video if you don't want spoilers for the remake. You can go. But I did see stuff about the new Josh ending, and that's really interesting. I will talk more about it once I have time to play it. But I'm very likely going to make a video on it and kind of what it all means, because Supermassive have been trying to make Until Dawn 2 forever. Like, The Quarry was very probably supposed to be Until Dawn 2, but then they kind of burned the bridge with Sony. But now that they've made loads of money on this remake, they'll very probably make a second game. And how Josh factors into that is so interesting and compelling, and there's so much potential with it that, yeah, I mean, again, this is all based on me watching a cutscene, and not fully experiencing the piece of media. So I will need to sit down, actually play it, actually understand the full framing and context of it, because it is new content that requires proper contextualization. But once I have all of that, I'll probably talk about it. I'll get back to you on this question. So yeah, that's the 15k Q&A. As always, thank you to everybody who's been around and has made this last 6 months possible, who helped us hit this milestone, who submitted questions. Obviously, shout out to the channel members. They'll be on the screen right now. Yeah, if you missed this community post but have questions you want to ask about literally anything, leave them below and I will answer them, assuming they aren't completely insane. And yeah, until next time, I'm going to vanish for a while and spend ages making this House of Ashes video. Cool. Bye.